Hi friends, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whatever may be. Because you may listen or see anytime, maybe in the morning, afternoon, evening, night. So that's why I said good evening, good afternoon, morning, whatever may be. Five things I want to communicate regarding Old Testament prophets. This is mainly for my students. Thank you Arjun for taking it. Um, Five things. First thing that I want to communicate is who is a prophet. Prophet is different, prophet is different. This is who is a prophet. Simple definition which I like, and I prepared it, so I'm just telling it. Prophet is God's man, that means called by God. So God's man speaking God's word on God's behalf to God's people is a prophet. God's man speaking God's word on behalf of God to God's people is a prophet. That is the first thing. The second thing that I want to talk about is what is prophecy. Prophecy is two types. One is foretelling, another one is foretelling. Four. What is foretelling? Foretelling means something is happening now at present. So the prophet is going to correct, rebuke, or warn. So it is about foretelling. The second type is foretelling. Remember, four in cricket they say four. It's very far. So think far. That means future. So second type is foretelling. That is about future. Maybe warning, blessing, judgment. So it is about foretelling. So two types of prophecy: foretelling present, foretelling future. Now the third thing that I want to communicate: two types of prophets are there. Like if you say match the following, true is there, false is there, like that. Anything you take, true, good is there, evil is there, like that. Two types of prophets: false prophets, true prophets. Just one thing that I want to talk here: true prophets speaks for God, false prophet speaks for people. True prophets want to please God, so he speaks for God. False prophet, he speaks for people because he wants to please people. So these three things. The next slide I want to talk about the other two things of Old Testament prophets. Thank you for listening. Welcome back to the second session. This session I want to talk about two things. First one, prophets in the Bible. When we look at the Bible, we would see two different types of prophets. One is major prophets, the other one is minor prophets. Major prophets: Isaiah, Jeremiah, Ezekiel, Daniel. They are called major prophets. If you say major prophetical books, then Lamentation will come. Then the second type is minor prophets. That is from Hosea to Malachi. They are called minor prophets. Major prophets, minor prophets. What is the difference between major prophets and minor prophets? Maybe they are old people, so major, minor people less than 18 years. No, not like that. Major prophets means we have more materials available. For example, if you take Isaiah, 66 chapters are there. But take Jonah, very few, 4 chapters like that. So it is not because of more importance or less importance, but because of more materials, we call them major prophets. Because of less materials available, we call them as minor prophets. So major prophets, minor prophets. The second thing that I want to communicate is that two types of prophets in terms of writing in the Bible. If you look at two types of prophets, one is writing prophets, the other one is non-writing prophets. Or in other words, we say writing prophets, canonical prophets, non-writing prophets, non-canonical prophets. What does it mean? Writing prophets or canonical prophets, that means they have book on their name. For example, Isaiah wrote, there is Isaiah book. Jeremiah wrote, Jeremiah book is there. So they are called as major prophets because there are books available on their names. But when you come to non-writing prophets, they don't have names on their they don't have books on their name. For example, Moses was a prophet, but there is no name. Even Samuel, for some time, he also was a prophet, but there is no name. Elijah, Elisha, there is no name. So they are called as non-writing prophets or non-canonical prophets. 5 things we have learned from 2 sessions. One is who is a prophet. The second thing that we learned, what is prophecy. The third thing we have learned two types of prophets. The fourth thing we have looked at prophets in the Bible. Then the fifth thing that we looked at two types of prophets in terms of writings. Thank you for listening. May God bless you.